Hi. I feel like I don't need to say hi anymore. I feel like this is so different. Definitely wasn't expecting this. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Just delve right in. I think I'm nervous. All right. So as Bethany was in center stage, I had to really plot in my brain, and I was like, oh my goodness, I actually have to have a list of things that I'm going to read. And so I made a whole list while she was just sitting there. So the list has 9 pieces. So you guys can choose. I know we can only do as long as we can. So I always give the themes of either cultural, love, or self.
Which things?
Cultural, love, or self.
One of each.
Cultural.
One of each?
Yeah, one of each for sure.
Good.
What are we feeling for first?
Cultural.
Cultural. Okay.
It's that director's voice, isn't it?
Director's spoken.
So there's one I wrote in 2022, and it was the first time I ever wrote an ode to an object. And it was a prompt in a workshop I took part in during that period of time. It wasn't even, was it? Sorry. It wasn't even 2022, I think it was 2021. But yes, I hate reading things on my phone, especially when it comes to poetry, so do forgive me, because it is on my phone. But yes, so this one is called Ode to Red Cedar Wooden Furniture. Long ass title, but it makes sense.
Yeah, of cedar.
From their corners to their textures and color, I wonder if they think of me in the same spectrum. A member to their family instead of a stranger, imposter, or a mere object to mine. Do they think of me in the same color, as in red cedar? The blend of every family member I've had the pleasure to be with in their presence, a reminder that the sun isn't always so cold nor so warm, and that red cedar may be the reason why I feel so at home away from home. Red cedar. The color of the paths in my maternal terra, I wonder if this familiarity is why I feel like I'm stepping into the warmth of something I haven't felt physically, but rather objectively through to my welcoming. Red cedar. My maternal cellar, I really wonder if all the travels we made to finally be together, the ones that didn't necessarily wear and tear the impeccability that is our exterior and that brittled our interior, is why I feel the heaviest clouds linger over the warmest place where I find your praise. I wonder if you will ever escape my embrace. Leave me to figure out the rest of my days and force me to grow into the adult you've aided to raise, but I collapse dehydrated to say. Don't fall for the chance of travelers and bargains for easier lives, for they will only burn my gaze to what will scold my sight and soon be the reason why I sit here today to write this ode to your presence in my life. Thank you.
You hear that sound?
That was harmonious. That was, thank you.
Yeah.
That wasn't okay.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
I was going to say you read that so warmly, and I could see your performance come through, but just definitely felt more spiritual, like just obviously not just an ode to Stella, but there was a warmth in your voice that kind of relates to the warmth of wood and things like that.
Thank you.
So, and just like one of the things I picked up on is that this kind of I don't know, just this kind of romanticism about having an attachment to a thing. Like there's this poem I'm trying to write called Sentiment, but like you imbue things with sentiment, and when you do that, you give it a life of its own, and there's a history there, and there's a like you said, a culture there that you're between you and this bond, and it's just very. It's such a like powerful thing, sentiment, and even attachment to something, and that can be to anything from like objects to people to experiences and memories. So yeah, I just kind of liked everything that you kind of did there in that piece.
Appreciate
So yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. Actually, I have things to say.
Please do.
Say all the things.
All the things.
Say all the things.
Yeah, definitely like warmth, nostalgia.
Yeah.
But like, I think the very minute that you described the table in the first line of your poem, I saw it, I felt it, and my question is, there is this feeling of like a distant kind of home in the poem. Where is that home?
So it's more. So I'll explain the poem. So, in my living room, every furniture was shipped from when I came to the UK. So I was born and raised in Portugal. And I left my parents behind to come here for education.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was my dad's thinking. I heard later that my uncle actually bought the furniture off my dad. But for years, I always saw it as my dad purposely done that so I felt them at home. And like, it's mad because even the center table is an S. My last name is S. There's a reason why there's an S, because my mom's last name is not Sylvester, my dad's last name is S, and that was always in our home. And the color of every single piece of it is red cedar. But there's a lot of references to how distant that was, because like it got to a point where I literally sat down and I was like, oh my goodness, this furniture is just as old as I am. And like I see it, but it's not my UK home. I see that as when I was a kid with my big ass Tweety puff bear, whatever it was, right there in the corner. And it used to make me cry because it got to a point, which is why like near the end it feels so scolding, because I'm now growing and it took a while to get very okay with the fact that I haven't grown with my parents as much as I should have. And these pieces of furniture are almost my parents. They saw me grow more than my parents did. Wow. And it's hard to sometimes accept that, although now I accept that and it's great. Because it's so bittersweet, because I talk to my parents since I've gotten here, and that's one thing I think technology for. I've been so attached to my parents. My mom works here, so even though it's back and forth, it's still not the same. I can enable so many things extra to my parents than my actual parents, and that's no bad thing to anything that they've ever done, because I owe my life to my parents. But that's where that comes from.
There's a part of it that reminds me of Portugal Paradise. And Portugal Paradise is this poem, Richard Robinson, where he tells. There's this point where I think you should read it. It's just one of the best poems I've ever read. But it's about taking your portable paradise with you wherever you go, right? And just hearing that your parents bought that furniture and sent it with you, and it surrounded you where you were, and you've seen yourself grow along with the furniture. It's like they shipped to that portable paradise with you, and it almost feels like, to romanticize it a certain way, is like before the shipment went, they did that man thing where when you finish a truck or anything and you tie everything down, you have to give it that double slap. Your parents give that double slap and put themselves, some part of them inside it and send it to you. And I love the poem.
Yeah, and then again, like with that portable paradise, I felt like it's whatever piece of furniture you were speaking about is like sort of an ancestral souvenir, because you do speak about maternal ancestry, and there's that theme of like it coming from a tree, and trees, it's like always refer to mother nature. There's like,
I didn't do it that way, but it's nice. It's nice. Yeah, that's mad. That's nice. Yeah.
I've got one about, but I was really curious. So, just to hear the story of the poem, like the first question is: did the furniture feel meaningful to you when it first arrived for you? And in the poem, it feels like you spiral back to it, and part of it is that now it means something more to you because it's the place that you've come back to and you've reflected on it. And the I wonder part that you repeat. Like, so the first question is, did it feel as meaningful to you at the beginning? And then is part of the poem that you're looking back on the ways in which you've created meaning in those objects. And then if you had another stanza that was like, I wonder into the future, like what do you think those objects are going to bring you next?
That's a very good question. I like it. Thank you.
It's just like when it's like a physical item, there's something like I really that emphasizes me that the way something like a stony pickle on the beach means nothing day one, and then by the time
goes by,
yeah.
it almost gains life.
Yeah.
So for that first question. So to that first question, literally the first memory that comes to me. So I was 8. The first thing that actually got shipped here was what used to hold my TV. And it's in my grandmother's room. And I remember it was so brief. And it all, like a lot of these moments that I write about happen in like 2 minutes. But it sounds like it's a whole entire year's worth of everything. But that question, honestly, like it freshly comes through. So I was 8. Things are coming through the door. That one like TV holder, it comes with like 3 different drawers, 2 different things on the side, and like I felt this sense of ownership to it. And I almost got angry of the fact that it stayed in my grandma's room. I was like, why is it here? Like I was confused. But I almost had to like butter myself through and kind of just be like, oh, you know, it's in the house, like it's here, it's the only place it can fit, like relax. But that's how it felt in the beginning. I think I had this like really big ownership, and for a very long time, like seeing that S in the middle was my pride and joy. Like I hold my name with the greatest pride and joy. I was screaming, call me my government name every time you see me on road. Every single 4 names I have in my name, call me that. But yeah, it was all these different things, and I think I would always feel some sort of way when I was younger if anything was to happen to it. Like I would almost feel like, why are we mistreating it? Like what are we doing?
So it started big,
it started way big, straight away, and then as I obviously got older, they just became entities in the background. And then I think it wasn't until now I'm in my very interesting 20s where everything is just so beautiful. Like from all the questions to all the ugliness to all everything, like I'm in such a conscious space of everything. And when I found myself like really clued on the fact that, oh my goodness, these are my grandparents. Like these lot have seen me. Can you see me? See you see me? Like, and I think that's where the piece really began. It's like, if you could really feel, can you feel everything that I feel? And that's where the wondering comes in.
I would like to compliment you.
Oh, thank you.
A few times.
Okay.
And then I have something that just came up really vividly for me. So the first thing, I really loved the opening and the idea of do you see it from the same spectrum that I do. I thought that was beautiful.
Thank you.
And it reminds me, there's a bit in Matilda the musical, totally, it is relevant, where she says, I wonder if you see red the same way that I see red. And I find that perspective fascinating, and it just gave like life to this object, and suddenly made me kind of go to Toy Story Land, where it's like, what if the objects are watching us? And no, I loved it, I just thought it was beautiful. And I really enjoyed you kind of drifted off at moments, and it just added to this feeling of just utter love and utter kind of adoration for this item. Like, I love doing that as a poet as well, you know, I think actual nature, so I immediately hooked onto that. I was like, actually, that's what I do. Honestly, when you were saying things, I was like, oh my gosh, it's me! If you will ever escape my embrace is one of the most beautiful lines. It's absolutely stunning, but I was just really hooked onto that. And when you were talking about, you had this imagery of like burning, and in my head this thing came up and I was like imagining that table burning.
Oh jeez.
This is what I wanted, this is what I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Was like, there was so much love and adoration within this, and it was so beautiful, and then there's almost it felt like a threat, and it wasn't what the context of the sort of part of the poem was about, but the minute you brought in images of fire, I was like, firewood. That is a piece of firewood. That is fragile. That is very easily lost.
And it can go at any time.
And it can go at any time. And I found that quite interesting.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether this is a finished piece or not, it's just interesting to play with the idea of threat to something like that is so important.
I love that, because so this piece is essentially finished. I haven't touched it since I wrote it. But I love that.
Even if you just hold it.
No, I'll hold it. I'll legit hold it,
because
so one thing that I feel like I miss a lot as a writer is those extra points of like explanation.
It's like subtext.
Kind of. Like I almost leave you thinking as if we've known each other for years and you know exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's how I feel sometimes. So I love that, and thank you. And now that I want to voice note, I will think about it. But that's mad, because I didn't think of that. That's
immediately,
insane.
I had this image of
That's
all of the
insane.
furniture burning.
And my heart don't feel right with that. You
No,
know?
I didn't think it would somehow, but that was immediately what came to me, and I just found it fascinating that number one, my mind led to that. I was like, destructive nature much. But yeah, I just found that really interesting.
But,
Thank you.
Well, like, I think that leads me to another thought, that like I think this piece of furniture is your place of grounding. Like it grounds you. And now through this poem you've sort of like immortalized it. Because now even if you end up losing that piece of furniture in some way,
Knock on wood.
that
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
It turns up in his next film.
Honestly, I just want to burn it.
I'm just saying, even if it does, that I think that thought of that furniture, that the feeling that you have towards it, it's gonna stay and keep you grounded still. That's what's beautiful about it.
I got a question. That was really nice and gentle. That was really nice and gentle.
Thank you.
Gentle kids. But yeah, when you wrote the poem, it's such a weird question, but was you actually in proximity to
I was sat
the
in the living room.
Yeah. Okay. I also had this vision, and it's like, I kind of don't want to say it because sometimes it doesn't allow you to be present, but on the other side it does allow you to process things early, so when things do happen you have a way to heal just by looking back. But I just wrote about like the process of you flashing forward to, you know, I mean, Janae always says everything must go eventually, and it's this relationship between, you know, charity and the afterlife of the objects that we keep. And you know what it actually brought me to is, I don't know if you know Rudy Francisco. Yeah, everyone knows Rudy. Oh, he's
That dude, he's...
yeah.
rings a bell, but he's not
He's got some nice love poems as well.
He's lovely.
You'd like
One of his little secret ones is, in 2020 he was doing a slam, he was performing at someone else's slam, like young people's slams, and I tuned in on Zoom on YouTube, and I heard one of his poems, and it was an ode to his childhood home, and he wrote about like how he packed 16 years of his life and kind of threw out, and like sometimes there's a lot of things that you don't get the chance to hold on to. So I really liked you exploring that dynamic, and maybe like you don't have to do it with the same objects that you spoke about, but there could be room for, you know, the objects to have their own voice in response back to what you
That's
about them.
good piece.
Yeah, like what would they say to you?
Okay.
Their perspective, that's fascinating. That's really interesting.
What are you bringing to the table?
Oh, I wanted to say like, oh sorry. There's obviously with the idea of like red cedar and tables and wood, like there's so much you can kind of play with in terms of like, you know, texture, the idea of grey and the properties of cedar, because I don't know if it's red cedar, but there's regular cedar like sends moths away, like you know, it's used like they put cedar blocks in drawers and things.
Yeah, that's why they seem to use wooden things.
So I was thinking even like the idea of like table, properties of wood, the ideas of, and everything connected to that, like, you know, varnishing, preserving, because you're preserving the table through this poem, like Devin said, but also like the idea of like, you know, varnishing the table and like and things like that you can kind of like play with as well, if not for this piece, like maybe for another poem that you do about an object. But it was like just, it'd be nice to kind of explore that, like those kind of things, like play with like, you know, texture, maybe smell, or the properties of the wood that of the table.
I started it off like that.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I had just, so I went on Google's.
Yeah, that's how my dad says it as well. The Googles.
the Googles. I went all up in I went all up in there and I literally just typed red cedar.
Cedar, yeah.
Cedar.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right either.
I don't know, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think red cedar is the one. But I went in and I typed it and I tried to smell it through the picture. And then in 2021 December, I went on a writer's retreat to the border of Wales, and there was a tree that was just completely open, and I was like, "Oh, picture time!"
Instagram.
Not even a gallery.
Okay.
But now that you've said that, I think it'll be interesting for me to re-explore it because, it'll be good. So thank you.
It's all good. So.
Speaking of that, my mom's calling me.
This is a very non-deep comment, but it's related to what you were saying. There's a podcast called Everything is Alive, which every episode is a different inanimate object, but with a persona.
Stop it.
So there's like a bit of soap that's like running out, and there's an elevator, and it's like, I mean, it's not deep. And
No, that's something that will occupy my time.
Right now.
It's like a nice writing prompt thing, because it's like if you're like with inanimate objects. Like there's one which is basically about like an Oxford shirt and a pair of leather trousers in a cupboard together, and the leather trousers don't get a lot of use anymore.
Oh,
And they're talking to each other.
That's so nice.
And I don't know, it's like, I don't know, you might like it. Because it's
No,
like,
I
an
do.
object person.
I do like it.
That sounds fun.
Thank you.
You could do like a comedic counterpart.
It'll be a fun exploration. Any more questions? Do you want me to go on to the next?
Second
Yes,
one.
please.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, my heart feels very overwhelmed. So thank you guys. That was something.
What was the first theme you touched on in the first poem?
So that was cultural.
Cultural. So now we're left with love and self.
Yes.
Self.
Self.
Yeah.
Self. That's quite cool. Hold my drink.
Culture of self.
I got all that
It's a structural point.
We
of
just
view.
dive in. We just dive in.
Okay. So what are you saying?
What I'm saying is, if you do love now, then you basically bookended your set with kind of culture and self, with love as the filling.
Everyone feeling the vibe?
Feeling the
Okay.
vibe.
Okay.
Well, if you make it
in-house
I'm all about sequencing.
Now, sequencing is important.
I'll take it.
Absolutely.
That's the hard way on the
Someone's
manuscript.
going to self at some point.
Listen, I said.
So we said love in the middle, right?
You were right.
Okay. Well.
Often right, not always right.
Is there going to be some tea spilt in this one? Right? There's a bit of tea.
Not tea.
Tea on that table, yeah.
So, oh jeez, okay. Because the ones I have here, they are touchy love ones. They're not like, oh my goodness, gaga love. They're very
Okay.
They're like they're trying to reach out for that
Ah, I
love,
see,
or
I see.
almost like you lost it trying to get it back, couldn't get it back, kind of thing. I do have some saucy ones, but I look at you very, very specifically. I do have the but they aren't here. So if I have time,
Bring the
I'll-
sauce.
Yes. But if I do have time, I will just. So this one is one of my personal favorites. It's called Maybe You Will Never Understand What Your Distance Does to Me.
What you want?
Maybe you will never understand what your distance does to me.
What you want?
Maybe you will never understand what your distance does to me. Okay.
That line is a poem.
Yeah,
That's
it's
how the poem
it's
itself.
a poem in itself.
That's already a poem.
I love that.
That's how it's
Yeah, any questions?
So I forced myself to learn it by heart because performing it live is probably one of like my favorite things to do. And recently I performed it as a monologue. And it was just really powerful to me. So I'm gonna try and do it without reading it. Let me open the book just in case. Never know. Backups.
And it's good aesthetics for the,
Yeah.
book open.
With the armchair and everything.
Yeah. The Morpheus of poetry. Yeah. So.
No red pill there today.
I may not look at you guys, my eyes may be closed, but it's alright. Maybe you'll never understand what your distance does to me. I, the child of immigrants, have the hereditary gene of distance. Built in my DNA to be okay with love from far away, I know how to be digital with the physical, and I know how to be physical with the digital, and trust me, I can shut down on command. Yet, only in my 23s, still so infantile for a hand, a shoulder, or a cheek to lean on, and so my weight flops on to yours. And you sink in my drowning cargo. Just, maybe you'll never understand what your distance does to me, because actually, no. I hate that you are busy all the time. I hate that we don't see each other very often. I hate that we do not live together. I hate that we do not speak of all the things that we should speak of. I hate that you do not want me around all the time, and that I'm not someone who can help you with everything. I hate that I have to ask you more often than I should to do things that I should deserve. I hate that I feel guilty for feeling like this is what I wish I could say to you. But then I digress. And like a stray in the night, I cocoon back into my life and continue life in life, just understanding that you're actually not mine. We just soul together. And even though I understand that to be so true, I just don't think you will ever understand what your distance does to me, because when I say I miss you, I really mean I love you. Not like how the clouds used to remotely love me and kiss me to land, but like how they used to stare and clear the air for my arrival, tearing apart their tears on a stubborn... Let me reload it. We just soul together, and as much as I understand that, I can't help but feel that maybe you will never understand what your distance does to me, because when I say I miss you, I really mean I love you. Not like how remotely the plane used to love me and kiss me to land, but like how the cloud used to love and stare and clear the air for my arrival, tearing apart the tears of a stubborn cloud on a grey day, but still. Maybe you will never understand what your distance does to me, because I feel so trapped in this plane. My cargo weighs us down, we can't even keep high, filled with clocks for the times I hope to be near you, not feeling able to, because it's actually been nearly 3 years and I'm only flying right now and you're not even here. My luggage is too heavy for your schedule, is that it? Am I not the best person to sit next to you? Am I really that chatty? Can I not be your patty? Can we talk about my pappy? Is it okay to dance with me? Just have my babies. I mean, I wonder. if you think I can keep staying on this plane, because it is not easy to love from here, but please try to understand what your distance does to me. As the blame falls on the changes from Heathrow to Stansted, or on the fact that WhatsApp calls became my living room, or that your house became mine, and my life finally had a mother. That wasn't the mother of my mother, but the mother away from my mother, and so I am back to only being 23 and still so infantile on my desire for a shoulder, a hand, or a cheek to lean on, and so yes, my weight does flop onto yours. Except now you sink in my very wet cargo. I understand that for you to understand this analogy, it would mean that you need to creep into your feelings, and I know that your time would kill, so maybe you won't. But entering this plane may just be the only way that you may ever understand what your distance does to me and our we.
Wow, that was
On request, can you please run that first line? Just that first sentence, because that just like got me like. It's,
Can I?
you know which one I'm
that's
speaking
line
about.
1 to 6.
What? 1 to
Lovely.
6. Just tell me when to stop.
You're not going to stop. You can just read it.
You can stop.
Read it. Just read it.
Maybe you will never understand what your distance does to me. I, the child of immigrants, have the hereditary gene of distance.
That's the one.
That's the one.
That's what you need?
Yeah.
Yeah? Should I continue?
Oh my god.
Or should I stop? You good?
Yeah, we're
Well,
good.
oh no, I want to hear the next one. I want to hear the self part.
Oh my god, so many gems in this one.
Can I ask a quick question to start?
Please
Because
do.
you started that by saying I did this for monologue. Are you also an actor?
Wanting to go in,
You want to?
but
Okay.
not purposefully.
But that's really interesting. That's fascinating to me because you delivered.
Mm.
What I loved about that is the natural, the sort of naturalist way you performed it, almost conversational. But then you had these lilts and these little moments of rhythm and poetry, and it was just beautifully done.
Thank you.
Beautifully done. Because what a lot of people don't realise is that, is that Shakespeare, when he wrote in iambic pentameter, is he wrote in the way that we speak. And that is the form that humans speak in naturally. And what I think you did was got such a beautiful mesh between theatre and poetry
Thank you.
in that. And I really wish I'd seen that kind of full version, of
Just come see me live somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, girl! You know. But no, I just, it's so, I love it when I see that, because obviously as an actor myself, like I just revel in that kind of performance, and I love that you kept the musicality of it, because I think the musicality is so important, and the repetition of that title the whole way through, that's what brings it back and roots it into poetry and roots it into the form, and
It's also like letter writing, like
Yeah, I love it.
So that's where I began writing in the first place.
letter writing. Yeah.
So
It shows in
I went to an exhibition which shows the importance of the arts in the communities.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and they're free most of the time.
Talk about it.
Bring back youth clubs.
Right.
Fuck the Tories.
Hey!
In that way.
I have a piece on that actually.
Hey!
If we get there. So I started off. So there was an exhibition called Letters to Lost Lovers.
Is that based on a book? Because I got a book.
I don't know.
Because that's why I wrote.
They turned it into a book.
Yeah.
Did they?
Because I wrote My Navy, which is my love letter poem based on that book.
Really?
Yeah, because it was.
So I went to the exhibition, and because it was just so close to me, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is a gem. Like, what are you doing here? And it was the most beautiful thing because it was love letters from all spectrums. It was to an object, to a person, to self, to sexuality, to whatever it was. And around that time, it was over my first heartbreak. And I wrote like this 4-page letter, ode to Aaliyah, without owing to Aaliyah. And I didn't understand, and that's where like I started seeing, I would say, my first superpower. as a performer or as a writer, because I would read it to my friends because I didn't know how to explain the feeling. It just ended up as a 4-page letter. And
I'm writing you a 4-page letter, and I sealed it with a kiss. Come
talk
on.
about it. But honestly, like it was such a thing. So for you to say that, I value that, because this piece is written like 2 years after I went to that exhibition, but the fact that it's still there, I appreciate that.
It does feel like that, yeah. And I have a personal obsession with letters. So many of my films are about letters.
Because really and truly, so the way I don't write intentionally to sound like a monologue. The way I describe my writing is I write for me first and then you feel. So really and truly, this was, and when I know a piece to be very true is when I don't touch it again. Yeah. This is one I never touched again. So the moment I wrote it, the day it was finalized, I haven't touched it, I haven't fixed it, I haven't done a thing. And that was the second time I realized that, okay, this is how I work as a writer. So when something clicks and it's set, you don't need to explore that feeling anymore. It's done, it's there.
I personally don't think you need to change anything about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, sorry.
I just wanted to
Go for it.
There's so much to say.
Let's go for it.
There's so much to say. I kind of want to ask you first, because I want to know if you realise. Okay. Question is.
She's got notes, by the way.
I know. I saw her doing a whole little presentation. It's like an essay right now. Like a dissertation right now. Alright, cool. I'll ask you one thing. Why did you perform it in the way that you did?
Because I could never be angry.
Oh.
It's a tough one.
In general, or just?
In general, I don't like when. If for example I go into an acting space and people are like, okay, show me an angry face, I don't know how to do it. Like I'm just like where are we going from here? Because I don't know, and I realized that that's a reflection of how I actually handle hardship in my daily life. I don't like to get angry, because if I get angry, I'm explosive, and so currently in this adulthood, I'm trying to see where the difference is. Like, where's the in between? Because really and truly, I'm like, you can walk over me. I'm just one of those people. Walk over me. But there will be a point where I actually have to look at my self-respect. And in this, it was, well, I'm going to reveal now, we in a family space. So it's about, I would say, like my first true love. He had to move away for work. And life took him from me, basically. Essentially, because life got lifed. He had to go. Life got life.
Life got life.
Life. So
Trademark that shit.
LTD. I love it. So he had to go away, and for a very long time, a lot of the hardships I think in our relationship were the fact that I just couldn't accept the fact that he was just a workaholic. He worked a lot, and that's one of the things I loved about him, but it was also one of the things I hated the most, because I never got to see
It
what
cuts
I never got
both
to
ways.
think about, and I never got to experience, I think, what I feel like I would see people 3 years in a relationship would be discussing. But it was also a lot of reflection on me and all the things that I couldn't provide as a partner, and all the things. There was a whole load of things, but
But it seems that you can see it sort of cuts both ways, like you said, not just looking at
yeah,
what he wasn't able to do, but also going, hang on, I've just realised there's certain things I need to figure
Yeah.
out that I
Yeah.
have to do.
and that's what that piece kind of targets. So the freedom within writing that was the fact that I didn't have to make you feel directly bad. I can make everybody else feel it. You may feel it, I can't touch that. It's like Bethany said, if it touches you, it touches you, Shannon. I've done my piece, chat to me later, call me. But if you don't, you don't.
We know that you were in the wrong, is essentially.
But maybe not even the wrong, you just know.
You just know.
That's it, and I've said my piece. And I think that's one of the beauties about spoken word, is the fact that I can do that. And it doesn't have to be direct. I don't have to hurt your feelings directly, because that's one of the things I hated, was to know that I hurt my partner in the worst way.
You're using your gift to do it as well. Why I asked is because there was three main parts. I think it was translation and you gave translation and you gave explanation within your writing.
Okay.
And why I say that is
Definitely not consciously. We say that free.
you know what I think? Because, alright, what I wrote down is all your airplane references, it linked to, you know, the everyday phrase of love is in the air. That one we heard.
No,
Okay.
yeah,
Catch flight or
Yeah.
feelings.
Catch flight.
Dropping gems today.
Flights and feelings.
Put them feelings
Why
on
is it so
airplane
binary?
mode. Airplane
It
mode.
was that, and then
That's crazy.
with your title,
Mm.
can anyone think of what type of, like, you know, quote links to, say your title
Maybe
again?
you will never understand what your distance does to me.
I did.
No.
So it was a couple of things. Now, because you start with the idea of the immigrant, you already have the physical distance as well as emotional.
Yeah.
So you're far away from that way, but then you've got the breakdown of, you know, him being a workaholic, not being around, so him physically not being around, and through those visual reminders, you're seeing the breaking of the emotional distance. Because they can be like that, but if you still felt that emotional closeness, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
So you're seeing almost both break down at the same time. So that bit in the middle of where you've got that list of I hate all, you know, you list all of those things. That reminded me of 10 Things I Hate About You.
I've not seen that in a while, you
Which
know.
is equally, like, again, a love poem, but it's, again, that whole thing of, like, the same things that you love about them, the same things you hate about them.
Yeah.
They change based on how you feel.
Yeah.
But then by the end of it, like, again, I thought all of the plane references, I think, again, they're all different ways to come back to you. Cargo, navy, water, and then flying. But then all of the flying, again, you talk about like the baggage and all of those other things. I think if you did want to, and I'm not saying that you have to, but if you did want to explore that a little bit more, you could.
Yeah.
So that extending the metaphor of the idea of flying and the baggage and, you know, all of those things that in reference to that in the context of your relationship in that way. Because it's almost like you're having a long distance relationship with someone who's right next to you. You know, and you're feeling that physical separation from home, and the person who's supposed to be like home isn't there.
Yeah.
So you're feeling a separation from both parts. So when you make reference to the hand, a shoulder, it's like you can see, and you know, I think everyone has those moments, and that's what makes it resonate so much, is you all have those moments where you crave that closeness. And that's essentially what you're asking for, and he doesn't get it.
Yeah, it's like, amazing when you spoke about it again. I don't know why I keep on bringing out quotes that are just familiar, but it's you know, love being this journey, and you talking about all the ways that you travel to love. But the quote that I had in mind when you say the title is "Distance makes the heart grow fonder," and then why I asked you the question that I began with the performance style that you chose to take. I think that was just sick.
Yeah.
He's
it's
like,
cool,
I
it's
need
cool.
to close my eyes. I was like,
No, yeah.
yes. I was like, that's sick. And it was the whole idea of just being a love poem. And you know, they say love is blind. So when you
Where did your mind go?
I don't know, man.
They say the same thing about justice.
No,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really, it's beautiful, man.
Love is blind.
It's a neat
so it's
song
like
as
you
well.
had to close
Yeah.
your eyes, and some of us did close our eyes.
I closed
I
my
did.
eyes. I
I
closed
Yeah.
was listening with my
Yeah, and when you closed it, you felt the poem
Yeah.
differently to when. And I also like the part where you kind of like you did go into your book and you did start reading, and then that's when we saw the drum come out, and it was like, you know, I see this, but also when I close my eyes, I also have this imagery as well. So it was you touching on love is in the air, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and then love is blind, and that's why you read a love poem with your eyes closed. That was sick.
Also, what Chani said about closeness made me realize that this is one of those poems that is more about what it's not about.
Yeah,
You know?
100%.
You come in with all the bars, man.
Honestly. So the rest of it.
I want to ask a question. I want to ask a really massive question.
Oh
Love poems, right? Okay, poetry kryptonite. I've heard.
I've got a few
poetry
today.
poetry love poems really, really
I
well.
love you today.
So I want to know about
You're not a
how
fan
do you.
of poems?
I'm not. It's not that I'm not a fan. It's just that as a
Sound like
poet,
editor.
you kind of like
Like publisher.
like fear them because it's such a big topic. But I love my
Hates love
favourite
poems.
love poem. I don't think you can understand love unless you've been in a long distance relationship. That's my personal theory. But
Why? Yeah, explain that. I love how he threw his head in his hand.
Long distance relationship is good.
Listen, it's gangster.
But
Jeez, I give
Yeah.
props.
Man.
Like it's and I think
I lived 15 minutes down the road from someone I was with for 2 years, and even then I was just like,
yeah,
that was difficult
It's
to
so
navigate.
hard.
'Cause I was thinking of moving to East London. I was like, we're struggling at 15 minutes. If I live an hour and a half, you feel my pain.
but that was
I was just like,
honestly, if you're gonna ask me, and I'm sorry, I'm
No, that's fine. This is
But please
You
ask
need
me.
to- you need to-
But
You're not
on that
debating the
point-
answer.
No, but on that point, I mean, am I revealing too much? That's the proximity of what it was between me and the individual.
Yeah.
And if 20 minutes away, I barely saw you, you think I'm gonna go and wait for you in the States?
So this was I was the other way around. I was like, I can see myself abroad.
Yeah.
The person was like, no, it's alright. I was like, dude, we're not alright at 15 minutes. And you're like going, yeah, we'll make it work if we jump on a plane. I was like, how, Sway?
It's you know what? A lot of things could have been.
Gotta go old school there. Show like great.
A lot of things could have been very different. But once again, like
That's the title of a poem itself.
honestly, but
And a memoir.
like
Okay.
you're on the road for yourself. One thing I do want, like one thing and you're gonna hear me almost like go back in my little anger and just, I almost like, I have a love-hate relationship with the piece because I almost feel like, does it put him in a bad light? Does it put him in the fact that
No, it's just life. It's life
saying
thing.
you're
That's all.
expressing your
Yeah.
anger in all of these different ways, but you're still calm.
Yeah.
So in the same way, it's like, if anything, we're more annoyed for you. Which is like, what?
Yeah, our indignation just is like mercury through the thermometer. So
You haven't heard my breakup poems. That is chill.
No.
That is nice.
Yeah, like, I would imagine your breakup poems are just.
I'm sure you've seen it.
I've heard one.
The same
I've heard one.
You
It's
might
just
have
in scribbles.
psychologically fuck yourself.
Yours are like
Towards peace.
glass at a Jewish
Right?
wedding.
Yeah.
Shattered all over the place.
And by you not expressing,
Glass at Jewish
by you not letting
That's a
all the rest of it,
My Semitic
everyone
cousins.
else feels that anger on your behalf. So you don't have to.
But you also said at the beginning, like, life stole that relationship away
Yeah.
from you, and I thought that was a really good frame for it because it is. It's like, I mean, it's 2023. We live in the world that we live in right now.
Yeah.
It's like I would wager that everyone in this room had like kind of life stole it away, and I think there's always that kind of thing of like, is it that the pressures that come from the outside, like work on the cracks that are already there, or is it that like it was never meant to work, it just accelerates it, or is it that life took it away? And I love that part about the poem is that it's not blaming anybody, but it's like it's all about the distance, isn't it? And I like that.
And it's still unfair.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
still
but-
unfair.
yeah,
Because
But it's not one or the other. I think sometimes life takes a person away,
Mm.
but other times what you become aware of is like, oh fuck, there were cracks.
Yeah.
But now what's happened
But
is
it's
that
true.
no,
It's
because
true.
what happens is you feel like, I didn't know there were hairline fractures, and when pressure comes, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's
Yeah.
fissures. It's
Yeah.
like tectonic
Yeah.
plates.
It's like
Just
tip of the iceberg sort of stuff.
But the thing is, as much as it is the absence makes the heart grow fonder, there is a point where it's the snap.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're
It's
so
like,
far
it's like
gone.
an elastic band, right?
So
you pull it so
gone,
far.
and then it's
Then it
pain.
snaps,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's that point. The bit that you're talking about is that point. So it's been pushed to the extent that it can, and it's like almost a level of indifference, or you know, we're not where we used to be, and that's the hardest thing to accept.
Yeah.
Do you think that after the poem, after the relationship,
Yeah.
that you learned to love in presence rather than distance?
Absolutely. I mean, I loved him presently as much as I could, and I know he tried as well, which is the important part in that. I think we didn't end in malice, and I think that also hurts in itself because you can't pinpoint it.
There's nothing.
You can't punch anything. Like, I can't punch him. Do you know what I mean?
I love that.
We kind of
It's like trying to box with God, your arms aren't long enough.
It's like, why don't you just like cheat on me or something? Why can't it be simple? And that's a really horrible
No,
thing to
no.
Or something like that, you can grab
You
it.
can grab on it,
say
you can take it and be like, this is the
that's
reason.
that.
You really
And
want
I
to grab onto that? I'd rather let go.
And I had that for a while because I just couldn't hold anything. Because legit, like life could have taken me, and then that's that.
Yeah.
You know. So I
OCD,
always have to
straight
mirror it because it would be very selfish of me to not mirror.
I would love to see the selfish version. Similarly
Yeah.
to what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
I'll be
Pushing the poke in the bear.
I really would love to see the selfish version.
version.
I would love to see that.
Okay, noted.
Maybe potentially with the same titles, potentially with the same inline, the same through line.
But just a different vibe.
But just a different, but just that.
Okay,
But I mean,
kinda
it might
like-
be too far gone because I know for myself that when I'm in that raw feeling, I write fucking raw, and like I write so strongly about that emotion that I look back and I'm like, holy shit,
Let's calm it down.
I don't want to be that girl. But you know, maybe it is too far gone now. But it's interesting to explore that, especially when there is a really calm, sort of mediated version of it.
But it's like you say, it's like it's easy to do that if there's like something to aim it at that feels like the right thing to aim at. So like if someone cheated on you, for example. Or it's like, so I guess it's like what do you aim at?
You aim
at a distance.
Aim at the universe or the distance. Yeah, like you find something.
You find something
You
to
find
hold it.
something to blame.
Yeah.
You know, you find the thing. Like if you can't be angry at a person, it's usually the healthier the thing. Like be angry at God. Be angry at whatever it is that you might believe in, whatever system you. I always say the universe.
Yeah.
That's just mine.
Yeah. So long as it's a subject that really brings out the
And
ire.
just channel it and just go fucking.
I like that word.
What's the
yeah,
last
me
line
No
of
one
the
uses it
poem?
enough anymore.
Uh,
It's
Well,
21st
last
century.
two lines.
Sprinkle a bit of vocab over there.
It feels like it's been consigned to words like woo.
The last two lines are. Sorry. Last two lines are. I'm just going to read that final paragraph. I understand that for you to understand this analogy, it would mean that you would have to creep into your feelings, and I know that time will kill you, so maybe you won't. But entering this plane, maybe what you really need to understand about what your distance does to me in our we.
In our
We.
definitely. I was like, do you think it's finished? Do you think the story's finished?
The story as in
I mean, the
them
story-
two, or the story.
Metaphorical one or
Why are you tempting fate? Sometimes
Someone's already
a
right.
sentence just has a full stop on the end. It's just that.
To be honest, it has 3 dots.
Oh yeah, that is the
Let's see.
This is when Chloe
I've
opens
never
the door
thought
and he just
about it.
walks in.
I'm assuming this person like goes between wherever they are and here sometimes.
Yes.
So does
I
is
don't
there,
even know if they're currently here at the moment.
okay. So there's no tabs in terms, there's no Facebook, no Instagram.
We still have contact.
Okay.
We still I was still in connection with his family. Like
Okay.
Okay,
it's very,
That's
it's very,
nice.
it's very
let's
subtle.
focus on
This
the
poem is
poem.
not finished because in 50 years' time.
Not that, not even that.
Know what I mean?
Do you think
Or-
that could be a theme in the type of poetry you write? Do you feel like your poetry is ever finished?
Ah.
Yeah, but the poem's never finished.
I feel like I feel like I can't answer that. It depends.
Okay.
I think
That's a good answer to that question.
Oh yes.
It's like Wimbledon, you served, and she's like, she wins.
She didn't even serve that. She's like, you know,
come back to this game later. Come back to this game later.
Proper Dravid stroke, huh?
I think, I mean, you're still young. Love stories, like, especially this one, seems like it's open-ended in a way, and it's ended perfectly in a way that you're not really angry at this person. That I think there's a second chance somewhere along later on in life that you just don't know about, because life's crazy like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So-
I mean, I'm 25
He's got his
now.
heart
so
set on a
that's-
rekindling. That's all it is.
Say?
Okay, he's got his heart set on a rekindling. That's all it is.
I don't know.
He's
we don't
relating his stuff onto your relationship.
We're dwelling into speculation now, guys.
Set up dreams.
So I'm just romantic.
No, but I think
A bunch
Question,
of
please.
poets are going into somewhere.
You're in love with love.
Yeah. I need to mix up the theme in my
I
mind.
know the Italian translation, but I don't know the.
Say in Italian.
Oh.
But say it slow.
So it's like a little part, it's actually not all of it. Ed allora io sono perché tu sei, ed allora sei, sono, siamo, e per amore sarò, sarai, saremo. It's like the connection between, like, and for love, I am because you are, so it's like the connection of the two. And like how love can unify like two individuals and make one, and also like the separation is like you're
Separation of
losing
one.
something and you're
Yeah.
it's like a brutal one.
Okay. Let's pause that.
Now we have self.
Now you have.
Self.
How long do I have still?
Oh boy. Time is tight, but
Time is tight. Okay, so just one more.
So just, yeah.
I have. Okay. So for self, I have 1, 2. So 1 or 2.
1, 2.
Hands up for 1. 2 it is. Oh wait. That's for 2. Sorry. That's okay.
So it's 2 then.
Okay. So, now one of my recent faves. It's a This one is a madness, and it's mad because I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, it's a madness. One of my proudest pieces because it is a madness. So here we go. I'm just gonna wait for Chloe. Violence to self.
Not a fan of that.
No, but not violence in like physical or anything. It's very
Volcano over here.
That's worse.
It's you see what I'm.
I'm just a voice. I'm not here.
Alright, ready guys?
Yeah.
You're a troublesome voice.
So it's called A Hand Sower's Heartache. Performative as well, so I'm gonna close my eyes and sit down. So please feel free to if you need to. Ooh, I caught it. My heart. Second time today that's happened. You would think we weren't connected by the cords of life, you know. And in case you were wondering why it does keep happening, I've managed not to stitch myself up properly. There's a scar right where it resides, so big I cover it up with appliques just to make myself look pretty, but I am torn. And I am distressed. Manipulated manufacturing, I guess. I have stitched myself up properly before already, and even though today my heart's only managed to slip out twice. 2 days ago it hung on my kitchen table. 4 days prior, I cooked with it, but it hung so low, I almost cooked it in the process. A week ago, it actually managed to pump blood without any intervals. A month ago, it hung so low, I took it for a walk. A year ago, it was so swollen, I couldn't move. Breath skipping, almost signaling for my inner child to double dutch its way into this healing. That is just how my heartache feels like to me, if I can even put a feeling to it. I am constantly heart-sitting. And even though days get better and I get stronger in this battle between the stitching and the scarring, you would never believe me if I told you I was a graduated hand sewer. so I should know better. That craftsmanship and delicacy work hand in hand. So for goodness sake, Tifany, please just stitch yourself up properly. I do understand why I've been coming undone though. And that is just because I haven't been delicate with me yet. I really wonder at times what my autopsy would look like if someone was to rip this tear wide open from my neck to my feet, whilst my heart pulsates at the speed of a seamstress's foot in the pedal of an industrial machine, except there is no amount of time, no amount of years, no amount of delicacy that can patch this up yet. Every tear tears something new. Organs rare, flesh bare, exposure to the air, and I oxidize and get darker as I just lay here bare. A deeper reminder of how dark I can be. But have you realized that whilst I'm speaking to you, my heart still hasn't left me? Clearly there's enough blood to pump into me, so why does it do this? And just as easily as I have been ripped open, I am expected to whip stitch myself into anatomical perfection. But what if my liver decides to leave me next? Or my kidneys? Or what if my cords of life stop giving life and I'm constantly in this battle between my needle and I? Maybe I should change my tools. Opt for a zip maybe, yes, that could do the trick, but then again, I would just remain wounded, but just with easier access. Or maybe, just maybe, I should finally learn how to stitch myself up properly. Yeah, that should do it. Thank you. Voice not dead.
Wow.
It seems like you can battle between a monologue and a poem throughout.
But it's quite powerful though.
Yeah. It does lean a lot towards monologue.
Not on purpose.
Yeah. And how are you feeling?
My heart's heavy.
Yeah.
But I think it's, I mean, I've been feeling a bit anxious as I sat down in the chair. But I don't want to, and I love the fact that I don't want to. I've only performed that piece, like, without book twice. I think this is probably the third time. And it began with actual heartache, like me trying to explain what my heart felt like to me. And when I spoke about the 2 days, there was legit a day where I crumbled on my kitchen table. Because my heart just felt like it fell out of me. And that's actually what spiraled the whole thing. I am a fashion babe and I do hand sew, but what spiraled it was that one moment where I was crying profusely in my kitchen table. So I feel...
I felt that, like I cried.
My heart is heavy.
It really
Like if that makes you feel.
But also, like, this poem is full of like questions. Like you question a lot about yourself and about what you are doing, but also it gives you like all the answers. Like at the end, like you learn how to, like, it's almost like a manual how to stitch up yourself. Like you know how to, like, you know what to do, you just have to learn how to do it. And like you have the answers, you just have to, I don't know, find a way to put them in.
Would you say that that's missing in the piece?
No.
Like I should explain that, or I should?
No,
just...
I don't think so. I don't.
Okay.
I also because there's just not one way, like how to do it. So I think it's different, like for every wound. So and you probably gonna find other ways like in the future. So right now you have a couple of tools and you're gonna have more and more as you go on. But I don't think you have to explain what tools like you learned. You just
I think I think sometimes you don't need to stitch it up immediately.
Exactly.
You can keep it on the
Very true.
table there and just let it be.
Exactly.
Nice spoken.
You're gonna find some way, like maybe later, or it just it's gonna be a scar, and it's gonna scar like for itself, like during time. Just give it time.
Yeah, time has
gonna
been the
heal.
best healer for sure.
But so many gems in this one too. Like I tried cooking with it and
Yeah, I was gonna ask
cooked
about
it.
that.
I was waiting to hear you in the background.
I did make a sound at that line. I was like, this is good. Even the one
Okay,
where you
eight
went
right.
it hung so low that I took it for a walk. That's such a good line.
Yeah.
Such a good line.
It reminds me of Cranes by Solange Knowles.
Yeah,
I tried to
Dude.
try to drink it away. I
Yeah.
tried to
Yeah.
dance it away. That kind of thing. So yeah, that's also a tune.
But also
Thank
another note, you should totally become an actor. Totally.
And star in his film.
You got plenty actors here now. I mean, just put me in your.
Check the spotlight.
I had a few things.
Go for it.
So at the beginning, when you have the idea of you catching it, I think again playing on the idea of like wearing your heart on your sleeve, and then obviously later when you make references to all of these places, all of these things that you try to do with it, and then the other one was, I mean, it's interesting that you talk about the autopsy later, because I'd thought, imagine if you'd come to, it was from the perspective of a surgeon and they're narrating what they're seeing. Okay, so we have a patient on the table, and they're explaining that these are all of the things that have happened, and there's that element if you wanted to pursue. The other thing is you can make more references to other things that you try to do with your heart and what the, and because I think that was one of the strongest things that we all resonated with, and I think even the suggestions that you make of what you can do to heal. So you talk about the idea of, you know, zipping it up, or, you know, you could offer other suggestions. What if you were to button it? What if it was a Velcro? What if it was this? You know, and you
So actually make it longer.
you can extend that bit if you wanted to and make references, because again it goes back to the idea of not having the patience to let it just sit there and do something. We, as a human being, our mind is like, no, we need to do something about it, we need to fix it, we need to fix it. So we go through all of these trials and tribulations of like, maybe if I do this, maybe if I do this. And I think that's another thing that could, you know,
I like that, thank you.
You know, but equally it could just be that going back, or even using more language that you would associate with sewing. So you make references to the foot pedals of a sewing machine and all of those things. But again, it's that whole like surgeon can't perform surgery on themselves. So that yes, there's a lot that you can do, but there are some things that time can heal.
Yeah. I know we don't have much time, so please, like stop me if I feel like I'm going over. I was going to say there was something that you said in the beginning. So in the actual like writing of it, this piece was born out of one that I titled "In the Hands of a Chef's Knife," and that's the chopping of every single part.
That's the breakdown.
Yeah. So that's where that stemmed from, and then this happened.
I think it, I mean, I absolutely loved the poem, but I definitely felt that the two different bits, and like having heard a couple of your poems, I've not heard you before, which is a real treat, but you have such a reflective style, like you're really good at writing poems that are kind of scoping back over experience and like putting the feelings into context. And this, again, this is just my ear, so it felt, and I don't know if this was part of the plan, but like the bits that it felt to me, I loved the bits about with the weightiness, like with Devin, we had the flavours, and then you had like kind of, people talk about like different the senses, like tasting, touching, whatever, and they're used more, but I haven't really felt reading a poem that kind of like heft, and like, you know, and then you're putting in context about how it fell out onto the table and things like that. And the stitching, like, and then the imagery of the stitching felt like kind of the solution, but the the weight was the feeling.
Mhm.
And even when Apple said, "Oh, how are you feeling now?" you talked about heavy, and it sort of almost felt like a bit like in this poem, the feeling and the reflective solution were more separated than in the other poems that you've read today. And I don't know if that's something like. And what's the question, rather than me waffling on, is like, how do you approach like that? Do you write these kind of poems that are emotion and heavy reflectively? Do you do them in the moment? How do you approach, like, what are the themes that you write about that are your feelings, like how do they manifest in your language, and versus when you're thinking about putting it into context and narrative and kind of like the less emotion parts?
I do them without any structure, which is interesting. Like you would think I sat down and I had so much structure, but this was like just in the development of days. I marinate. And I legit, but that's literally what it is. Because this is so me. So I'm grabbing parts of different poets. Literally, I'm grabbing Bethany now.
Yeah.
Like this is me. What I'm saying to you is literally me, either live or in the past or in the present or how I see in the future. So it's very vulnerable. It's very touchy. It's very tactile. As in, like, I can talk to you about this feeling today. So I don't really have a structure, and I love that question because every time I'm like, I keep trying to think, like, do I have a structure? And I don't think I do. I think it's just sometimes.
I think you do, but maybe it's natural.
Sometimes it's Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. I don't think it's conscious.
Something someone said. This poet in Nottingham, Chris McLaughlin, and there's something really. It's something he says, and it is about poetry, saying that poetry is not going to save the world, right? It's a weird way of putting it, and he says that the poems aren't going to solve the problem, but we don't need to have solutions in our poem. Because the poem is an expression of an emotion that is going on. And there's this thing where sometimes you try to write, we try to write and we want to put a bow at the end, like, and the conclusion of the matter is, or it's like a letter from Paul in the Bible or something, where you get to those last 5 verses and he's giving you, okay, after all this evidence, this is, the truth or something. But poetry isn't like that.
Yeah.
From in
Well, to visit the New Testament.
Oh, yeah.
Well done.
I think so. I don't think it's necessary to solve the problem in a poem.
Yeah.
The problem can just be laid there.
I like when they laid there.
Yeah, and you just share it with everybody and say, my heart is heavy.
Poems are not like that because we are not like that. We are not like if something ends, it never ends for you. It's that something that ends, but it doesn't mean that
it lives on in you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like even in memories, or even if you don't remember it, like in printing or something, you always find it always finds a way to come back if it needs to, or if it.
Yeah.
Quite often these things live in our bodies and our subconscious.
True.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Shit, you got that before.
Anything else? That was amazing.
Yeah,
It's
really,
just amazing.
really.
It's pure.
Like the whole thing, like the whole performance, and
There was an arc.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Which we kind of co-created with you, but
It's a family time. I'm not complaining. Thank you so much for doing the space for me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tiffany.